I think that there's consciousness at various levels.
Yeah.
I believe that we are experiencing consciousness at the individual soul.
So there's more than one consciousness then? There's not a single consciousness?
I believe that there is multiple individual consciousnesses.
Individual in the terms of you and me, individual?
Yes.
Okay.
And that currently...
And at the cosmic level?
I think that's another level of individual consciousness. I think there is consciousness at cosmic level.
Okay, so the whole is the sum of the parts.
And that's what we call the devas. Consciousness at a higher level, not just worried about one little particular body, but kind of.
I understand.
I suppose you can actually think of it like this: that there's consciousness inside every cell of your body.
Yes.
There's consciousness within every atom. That in that little atom, there's some little it's pretty. It's not very elevated consciousness generally inside an atom, but it's buzzing around thinking.
You could be offending a lot of atoms.
I think I probably am there going, what? You big Burke.
If it wasn't for atoms, you wouldn't exist.
That's right. See what we can do to you.
So you didn't mean it.
No, I didn't mean it. You're all really nice, lovely. But at every level of existence, there is consciousness which the atoms wouldn't move, wouldn't exist, wouldn't have energy if it wasn't for consciousness. The molecules wouldn't. The cells of your body require the presence of the spirit soul to activate them. Otherwise they couldn't replicate, they couldn't heal, they couldn't do anything that they're doing. They are also driven by spiritual energy. And, as we if we drop our, and we are the consciousness which is in charge of this entire body. Therefore all these cells are in our care. All the atoms are in our care. If we drop our consciousness, we are no longer feeding those other kind of subservient, consciousness, in our care with good energy. We're feeding them bad stuff. It's like feeding your kids crap, and therefore they're going to be malnourished and kind of underperform, and then you're just going to get angry with them, So.
You sound as if you're talking from personal experience. Si looked wonderful when I saw her earlier. She didn't look at all malnourished. No, but let me ask you an even more serious question while we're laughing here. I forgot what the question is. It was so important.
But actually,
okay, yeah, this is it. Does an atom then exist independently of consciousness?
I don't think any matter exists independently of consciousness. Because consciousness is the primal energy, and matter is simply a condensation of that energy into something which appears to have physical existence.
You see, because this is fascinating. This is, as you know, quantum physics is my thing, or one of the things that I've been sort of really looking at. And one of the sort of areas where the scientists disagree, is this question of whether in the classic experiment of the observer affecting the observed, whether the so-called particle or the wave or the atom, however you'd like to call it, depending on how it's observed, actually exists before the observer comes on the scene. Do you see what I'm saying? Because some scientists say, well, the atom always exists. But other scientists say, well, there's no proof, and in fact there isn't, because it's only until we observe it, it's only until I look at the camera that I know that it's there, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a different element, but different point. So that would imply potentially, I mean, that has incredible consequences if you think of it, that nothing exists unless consciousness is present.
Well, that's why I can't understand why science doesn't take the point that consciousness is the primal energy. Because it's so obvious that matter depends on consciousness. The idea that matter produces consciousness, there is zero proof, there is zero kind of evidence that even would lend you to that supposition. that somehow or other our consciousness is an epiphenomenon, a manifestation of...
Which means the brain isn't consciousness, which means the mind isn't consciousness.
Yeah, no, and how could...
Well, the mind is slightly different, because we can't really define that in physical terms.
But you're quite right.
Cells, but that's the point.
But the idea that matter can come together into such a complex thing that it produces the concept of consciousness, when actually all the empirical evidence that we have is that consciousness predates matter, and that matter cannot seem to exist without the existence of consciousness.
So was there ever anything before consciousness?
No. Consciousness is all there is.
No. Yeah.
But for consciousness to... But the material world is a manifestation of a certain state of consciousness.
But that, yeah, but you see, when you say that, that goes back to which comes first. It's sort of chicken and egg.
No, it doesn't. No, because consciousness can vary. You know, it has... The free will exists in the state of consciousness. And that free will can vary, our state of consciousness. Now,
Well,
exactly what form consciousness and what consciousness is experiencing, we have to appreciate that there is something for consciousness to experience which isn't physical matter.